please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. In the description of this video, you can find my compiled link. Through there, you can find ways to support the channel, my other social media, and more. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. We're doing a first thoughts today. This first thoughts is on Lara Croft. Never thought I'd say that. Great crossover though. Tomb Raider's great games, great franchise, and this card seems like a lot of fun. Temur is my favorite colorway to play, so very excited to play this card. The categories I'll be talking about today are legendary lands that you can recur with Lara Croft, and then some land synergy cards. Legendary artifacts you can recur with Lara Croft, and some artifact synergy cards. There's a bunch of treasure synergy cards I want to talk about because at the end of each of your end steps, Lara Croft's probably going to make a treasure token, so a lot of these seem really good in the deck. Along with some cards that synergize with casting spells from exile because you're going to be doing a lot of that with Lara Croft, pulling back legendary artifacts and legendary lands and playing them from exile seems great. Then I'm going to mention a few ways to make Lara Croft unblockable so you can be sure you get that hit in, along with some extra combat steps so you can get additional triggers, some self-mill cards to fill your graveyard with legendary artifacts and lands that you can recur with Lara Croft, and then a bunch of one-off cards. So we're going to jump right on into this, starting with the legendary lands. The first land I wanted to mention is Academy Ruins. This card seems absolutely perfect in this deck because it does what you're trying to do with recurring artifacts on a legendary land that you can recur with Lara Croft. Plus it's in the secret layer, so it's going to be a freebie to throw into the deck if you buy the secret layer. Then we have the channel lands like Otawara, Sokenzan, and Beseju. These seem fantastic in the deck because you can channel them to get the ability and then recur them with Lara Croft as a land. Beseju, who shelters all, another fantastic include. Dark Depths could be a fun little combo to throw in this deck because you can recur the Dark Depths. Gaia's Cradle, very powerful land here. Gaia Reach Sanitarium can help you fill your graveyard if you want to. Gemstone Cavern seems decent. Hall the Bandit Lord provides haste for Lara Croft, which is nice. Hammerheim just kind of seems fun to throw into this deck. Inventor's Fair also works really well in this deck because you can sacrifice it to get an artifact and then recur Inventor's Fair and play that artifact. You have Kur Keep to make tokens. Migakoro for additional card draw. Minamo can turn Lara Croft into a blocker. It's just essentially an island with upside in this deck. Mines of Moria, little treasure synergies there. Nykthos. Oboro works well if you're going to go heavy on the land synergies. Okina. Rat's Edge is kind of cool in this deck because you can use it to sacrifice a land which you will then recur with Lara Croft and ping down some pesky creature if you need to. Rivendell for scrying, the Shire just life gain essentially, plus artifact synergies. Teleria, and both Yavimayas seem great in this deck. If you do plan on going heavy on land synergy cards, some additional land cards you can throw into this deck that seem worthwhile are Loamcrafter Fawn. This card seems fun because you can discard a lot of lands to it to draw cards and recur those lands. Tatiova, just card draw. Lotus Cobra to ramp you. Ramanop Excavator and Ancient Green Warden, along with Crucible of Worlds to additionally recur lands from your graveyard. You're going to want additional lands per turn if you're going to be going this route, so Azusa, Dry to the Elysian Grove, Exploration, all those seem like auto includes. Tireless Provisioner and Tireless Tracker for additional artifact cards. AC is a very powerful card for this deck. Scoot Swarm can essentially be a win con. Morog is super synergistic because of the extra combat steps, which let you get extra Lara Croft triggers. World Shaper and Splendid Reclamation to just recur all your lands at once. And Constant Mist is just a good land sack outlet since you're going to have so much land recursion. It seems like a great card to just include to keep yourself alive. Moving on, we're going to talk about some powerful legendary artifacts you can throw in this deck because Lara Croft lets you get legendary artifacts as well. A lot of these also have sacrifice effects where you sacrifice them to do the thing, and when they do the thing, you can then recur them and then do the thing again, and so on and so forth. Seems really good. So some of these artifacts are Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Works really well when you're filling your graveyard. You can make Lara Croft bigger, give her extra abilities. Andoril, just a very powerful equipment. Azor's Gateway for card selection, and eventually flips into a crazy big land. Bitterthorn is good ramp, and it's a legendary artifact that's also a creature, so that's kind of nice to be able to pull that out of your graveyard. Brass's Tunnel Grinder, good way to fill your graveyard along with flipping into a strong land. Brutaclad, if you're making some tokens, you can turn all your treasure tokens into some other token if you want to. Hammer of Nazan to give Lara Croft indestructible. Hazoret's Memorial to help fill your graveyard. Hope Agirapur is a recurable way to stop your opponents from board wiping. If there's like a specific opponent that's like playing white, you think they have a board wipe, you don't want them to use it, you can just keep Hope Agirapuring them over and over again. K9 Mark 1 seems like an auto include in this deck. It both protects and makes Lara Croft unblockable. Karn Legacy Reforged seems great, lots of mana generation. Karn Silex, a recurable board wipe. Lithoform Engine to copy all your triggers. Matzalotli is another way to just kind of fill your graveyard with card selection, just a lot of looting, and eventually can flip into a very powerful land. Mindslaver, recurable way to just steal your opponent's turns. Love that in this deck. Mithril Coat, another way to protect Lara Croft. Mox Amber and Mox Opal are going to be pretty powerful in this deck. Opal because of all the artifacts in the deck, and Amber because Lara Croft is going to be in play a lot of the time when you're playing this deck. It's going to be very commander dependent, but there's a lot of ways to kind of negate the need to have your commander in play. Palantir, it's either card draw or self-mill. Either way, awesome. Shadow Spear, good way to make it so your opponent's creatures can be targeted. Stone of Eric is recurable graveyard hate, which is awesome for this. Sword of the Chosen, kind of like a combat trick that you can use every turn for Lara Croft, kind of seems nice. Sir Ginger works really well with all these treasures, and he's recurable, and you can stack him for life gain if you need to. Tenza, another way to make Lara Croft bigger. The Enigma Jewel, it's ramp for a lot of your artifacts that have activated abilities, and then when you end up flipping it, it turns into an extremely powerful artifact. The Everflowing Well is another way to discard something that you're going to want to recur anyways, along with flipping into a powerful land. The Immortal Sun, just kind of an all-around good card. The Iron Crag, 2-mana ramp that's recurable, seems just worthwhile. Like if you're going to play a Mind Stone, you might as well play Iron Crag instead, because if you mill into it, you can get it back if you need it. The Might Stone and Weak Stone is almost like a spell on a legendary artifact, which is really nice, that turns into ramp. This seems like an auto include in the deck. The One Ring seems unbelievable. You get to cast it, so you're going to get the protection. If you have a way to sacrifice it, you can keep doing this over and over and recur it and essentially win the game just by having a sack outlet in the One Ring. Peregrine Dynamo to copy all your triggers. The Reaver Cleaver can make you a ton of extra treasures. Iriet's Tempting Apple for stealing your opponent's creatures over and over and over again. Hilda's Crown for tapping down creatures along with card draw, and it's recurable. And RMS Titanic can make you a ton of treasures, and it's recurable. And sacrifice, and awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Really fun card in this deck. If you're going to go this artifact route, which I think seems like a lot of fun, there's a lot of good artifact synergy cards you can throw in that can just make this deck run smoother. Some of those include Joyra for additional card draw, Sai for token creation, Emery for more recursion and also self-mill. Muradin Besieged can just be a win con in the deck. Similarly, Hellkite Tyrant can also just be a win con in this deck. Ethereum Sculptor to make your stuff cost less. Urza to turn your treasures into ramp, to turn all your artifacts into ramp actually. Girapur Aether Grid, turn your artifacts into damage. Saheeli and Third Path Iconoclast to make you a ton of dorks. Shimmer Dragon for card draw. Hedron Detonator for essentially card draw. And Maria seems awesome in this deck. Card draw and ramp. Love it. You can also throw in the package of Scrap Trawler, Me Retriever, Junk Diver, along with Goblin Welder, Goblin Engineer, and Doretti, so that we can do a lot of the recursion through your graveyard without having to cast things. So you can kind of get back a lot of stuff and put them in and out of your graveyard, getting a ton of triggers. That idea seems really good for this deck. The next topic I want to talk about are treasure synergy cards, because you're going to poop out a treasure a turn, if not more, with other cards in the deck, so you might as well run cards that synergize well with your treasures. Some cards like that are Goldspan Dragon, double up the mana from treasures. Zorn, just get an additional treasure. Peregrine Took, you get a treasure and a food. Love that. Academy Manufactor, you get a treasure and a food and a clue. Even better, Adrix and Nev and Parallel Lives to double up your treasure tokens, Professional Facebreaker to create some additional treasures, along with being a way to turn your treasures into card draw, Jolene, additional treasure creation, and an additional way to make treasures via attacking, which you want to do anyways because Lara Croft triggers when you attack, Junkwinder to tap down some pesky creatures, Jaheira to turn your treasures into mana rocks, Idol of Oblivion for additional card draw whenever you make a treasure, and Reign of Riches to cascade, because cascading is a lot of fun. Lara Croft lets you cast these legendary artifacts or play these legendary lands from exile, which is very important because there are a handful of cards that you'll recognize some of these from like a Prosper deck. When you cast a spell from exile, they do something. Those cards seem phenomenal for this deck. You can throw in cards like Nalfeshni, Faldhorn seems really cool for this deck, Passionate Archaeologist, Wild Magic Sorcerer, The Lost and the Damned to synergize with your lands, and Keeper of Secrets. This deck revolves around attacking with Lara Croft, so you're going to need to make sure that there's ways to attack safely, whether you're getting in the damage or just not going to be losing Lara Croft to a blocker. So some of those ways include Access Tunnel, Aether Tunnel, Aqueous Form, Bilbo's Ring, Hot Soup, and Key to the City to make her unblockable. Key to the City is really nice, but it's also a discard outlet. You can also give Lara Croft Death Touch because she already has First Strike, so cards like Basilisk Collar, Boa Nylia, Orden Frostfang, Sereth, Gorgon's Flail, Gorgon's Head, all those seem fantastic. Since she has the First Strike already, whenever someone tries to block, you'll just kill whatever creature blocks and Lara Croft will be safe, no damage. You can also throw in Maze of Ith to just remove her from combat if you need to. Speaking of combat, extra combats seem phenomenal for this deck so you can get extra Lara Croft triggers. Right? Important. So some extra combat step cards you can throw into this deck, besides Morag, which I already mentioned, include Aggravated Assault, Bloodthirster, Carlock, Relentless Assault, and Seize the Day. You're going to need a lot of ways to fill your graveyard so you can recur these lands and artifacts, and some good self-mill cards include Satyr Wayfinder, Deranged Assistant, Milliken, Light from the Loam, works really well with the lands, Mesmeric Orb, my all-time favorite self-mill card, Crawling Infestation, Crawling Sensation, and Hermit Druid. You can also use cards that filter through your hand, like Faithless Looting, Frantic Search, Thrill of Possibility, Prismari Command, and Windfall. Now I just want to go through some one-off cards that don't really fit into any specific topic that I was previously talking about. They're just some additional cards that I wanted to mention and seem worthwhile. You have the 4th Doctor, the 6th Doctor, and Glowin, which work really well with all of these historic, legendary cards in your deck. The Cauldron pieces are legendary, so that could work really well in the deck and could be a lot of fun to try to pull off. Collector's Vault, a good way to loot along with making treasures. Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots to give Lara Croft haste because she needs to attack to do anything. And also protection to keep her alive because that's really important. Song of Creation. This seems like a really fun Song of Creation deck because you're going to be filling your exile zone with a bunch of cards that you can cast. So you don't really need a hand and you can kind of cast something from exile, draw some cards, play some extra lands. You're going to want extra landfall anyways because you got all this legendary land synergy. Seems like a cool include and a fun card for this deck. Wolfgar can copy the attack trigger of Lara Croft, but not the raid trigger, but still seems very worthwhile. And Displaced Dinosaurs. Turn all of your historic permanents into 7/7s. Legendary lands are historic. Artifacts are historic. Your treasure tokens are historic. Just everything becomes 7/7s whenever they enter the battlefield. Love this. Super cool finisher. Seems like a lot of fun in this deck. That is everything I have for Lara Croft. If you plan on building the deck, let me know if there's any cards that you thought of that I didn't mention that you think will work really well in the deck. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Peace out, everybody.